Welcome to Warhammer Warscroll Review. In this episode, we will actually be taking a look at two similar Warscrolls from the Age of Sigmar game, the Stegadon and the Engine of the Gods.
Warscroll Review.
Both Warscrolls are monsters in the Seraphon army. Being as they both are technically Stegadons, they have similar stat lines but differ in roles quite significantly. They both have 10 wounds and a 4-up save, which is kind of pushing it for either of their price points. They share two special abilities, one that gives +1 to wound rolls on the charge, and one that grants rerolls to battle shock test for skink units within 5 inches. Both are pretty solid, and the +1 on the Stegadons means wounding with both its weapons on a 2-up. Their main difference is that the Stegadon has a much better weapon loadout, and the Engine of the Gods has a pretty unique special ability. In comparing weapon loadouts, the Stegadon has better missile weapons and have the same melee weapons with better stats. Most notably are its horns. While they have 1 less attack, they start at Ren 3. Stegadons have 2 missile weapon options because we're just going to ignore that skinks throw javelins. The Sunfire Thrower's Gout of Sunfire ability is pretty neat, but you would have to run the Stegadon into almost certain death to be able to get a good shot off. The Skystreak Bow seems all around better. Sit back and snipe characters, or shoot as you run in. This monster can be used as a counterattack when leaving him back and shooting. When the enemy gets close to an important unit, the Stegadon can charge in and support it. It also has a neat little special ability called Skink Alpha that lets a unit with the Skink keyword move d6 inches in the hero phase, and reroll 1s to hit. Remember that this works on the Bastiladons, Engine of the Gods, and the Stegadon itself. If there's nothing better to shoot with, you can just use this on itself to increase its missile and melee damage. But at 260 points, it's often better to just spend 40 more on a Bastiladon. It's more durable, and its shooting ability is much more deadly. While he can hit pretty hard in combat, he can't take much damage in return, and both its combat weapons take significant power decreases after it suffers 3 wounds. The usual Seraphon spells and prayers are helpful, like the Skink Priest and Star Priest abilities. There are also a few ways to augment the Stegadon in terms of damage output. The Skink Chief has a command ability that would increase its to hit roll by 1, and an Astrolith banner can allow it to reroll to hits. A High Elf Lore Master would also work pretty well. Their spell can be cast on the Stegadon to give it reroll to hit and to wound, and if all its attacks land, it can do a good bit of damage. One final point is if you have enough shooting to justify it, the Celestial Hurricanum would make the Skystreak Bow fairly accurate. Let's move on to the Engine of the Gods, which is roughly the same as the Stegadon, noting the differences in weapons, but has a really interesting special ability. Roll up to 3 dice depending on your level in the damage table, and then consult another table. On a 13 or less, it can heal models extremely close to the engine, or deal out mortal wounds in various ways. On a 14 to 17, it summons a unit, which is not exciting if you're playing match play, but on an 18 plus, time stops, and you get to immediately take another turn completely out of sequence after the turn you're on, and thus where the engine becomes kind of fun to use. Now to be fair, you really have to have 2 other Warscrolls in your army to make the Engine of the Gods reliable in any way, which already becomes a huge point sink, so this may not be viable in 2K, but in higher games it can be horrendously powerful. Oddly enough, the 2 units that enhance the engine's cosmic star powers the most are the Slan Star Master and the Skink Star Seer. The Slan Star Master allows an engine within 10 inches to roll an extra dice on the table and choose which to discard. This gives you a lot of flexibility to make sure you get something at least somewhat useful in the moment, but by itself it won't get you that sweet time stop. To make that somewhat reliable, you'd also need the Skink Star Seer. There is a Warscroll review on that model on the channel if you'd like more details, but to fill you in, there are 2 abilities that really shine with the engine. The Starseer gives you up to 6 rerolls per turn, and has a spell that lets you increase or decrease a roll by 1 for a unit once per phase. So altogether, you are rolling 4d6 and discarding 1 of your choice, with rerolls and ±1 to a single dice. With all this manipulation, you can avoid the summoning and healing results that kinda blow, and focus on either dishing out mortal wounds or giving you an extra turn. So say you roll your 4d6 on the table, and you get a 6 and a 5, or even a 6 and a 6, and 2 other dice that don't help. You could reroll the other 2 dice, and you'd only need a 6 or a 5-up respectively, since you can bump one of them up. This might not happen every game, but when it does, it can be stupidly powerful. Since you have the Starseer, through its reroll ability, you can really influence the initiative roll and thus the turn order. You could potentially choose second turn every time until you get the stop time ability, and have the chance to take 3 turns in a row. On the other hand, if you didn't roll that great on the cosmic roll, it's easy to massage the numbers into just the right type of mortal wound output that best suits your battle. So you can really think of the 240 points as an investment in mortal wound output, with a chance to let you get 2 consecutive turns. So obviously the 3 main war scrolls needed to make this are pretty expensive. It means you're spending at least 660 points to make this work. So the rest of your points are best spent putting out the most amount of damage. Shooting would be the best way to achieve this, since you wouldn't get any damage in return. I bet a whole bunch of salamanders would like 3 turns of running around setting things on fire. But don't forget, this combo is really not limited to Seraphon, as most of these War Scrolls abilities don't require a keyword to be used. As one more side note, it's worth mentioning both the Stegadon and the Engine of the Gods do well in the Heaven's Watch Star Host and the Thunderquake Star Host. These incorporate the Starseer and Starmaster respectively. The Thunderquake Star Host is probably a bit better since it heals back wounds to the big dinosaurs, making sure you're always getting 3 dice on the engine power. Both the Stegadon and the Engine of the Gods receive a 3 out of 5. In the Stegadon's case, it's because it is almost the price of a Stegadon and really not as great. For the Engine of the Gods, it's because in match play, it's hard to get any reliable results with that contraption without lots of points invested into buffing it. What do you think of these War Scrolls? Have you ever stopped time for 3 turns? Let me know your thoughts on them, and suggestions for the next War Scroll review. Leave that in the comments, and thanks for watching.